You're watching BCTV. We're all about Branford. You're watching BCTV, Branford Government Television, a service of Branford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Branford.
Let's start. We'll call this meeting of the Branford Planning and Zoning Commission to order. It is Thursday, December 7th, 2023. I have 7:02 p.m. I'll introduce members of the commission and staff. Joe Chadwick. Joe, are you here?
Joe Chadwick is present.
Fred Russo. Fred, are you here?
Fred Russo, present.
Joe Viuso. Joe, are you here? I see Joe, but I can't hear him. Joe, are you here? Does Joe have volume, Harry or Evan? Do we know?
I just talked to him a couple minutes ago when he signed on. So I'll try and he should be unmuted, but no, he's not muted.
No, and I see him on the list here, but
Yeah. He comes up as his phone. I renamed him.
One more time. Joe, are you here? Joe Viuso? Yeah. So, okay. Well, we'll try again.
All right.
In a little bit. Marcy Pelusi, are you here?
Marcy's here.
Marcy, right? And Massimo Liguri. Massimo, are you here?
Massimo Liguri is here.
Sharon Hutner. Sharon, are you here?
Sharon Hutner is here.
And our staff this evening, Harry Smith, our town planner. Harry, you're here?
I am here.
Evan Brining. Evan, you're here?
Here.
And our clerk recording secretary is Michelle Martin, and I think she is lurking in the background. Let's try again for Joe Viuso. Any luck with Joe?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. I had another call I had to take. I'm sorry.
Okay. Joe, you're here. Great. Excellent. Okay. With that then, and my name is Chuck Anderson, Commission Chair. Harry?
We have requests from our town engineer, John Hefferly, who is here with regard to the 824 referral under other business. He is hoping to be heard early in the meeting, if not first. So just make you aware of that request.
Okay. Maybe what we'll do is we'll start with we'll start with our normal. We read the notice of public hearing, and then we could move the agenda up once we start with the items on the agenda. So at this point, then I'll ask our secretary, Fred, to read the notice of public hearing.
Legal notice, Town of Branford. The Planning and Zoning Commission of the Town of Branford, Connecticut hereby gives notice to public hearings to be held on Thursday, December 7, 2023 at 7 p.m. by remote technology to consider the applications listed below. Information regarding how to participate in the public hearings will be provided on the Commission's meeting agenda that will be posted on the town's website at least 24 hours prior to the meeting. Application number 23-11.1, special exception for limited retail located at 1032 to 1064 Main Street. 1064 Main Street LLC in care of Angela Mozzarella, applicant and owner. Application number 23-11.2, special exception for a gym located at 249 to 251 West Main Street, Lakeview Center Associates LLC in care of attorney Kevin Casidian, applicant and owner. Application number 23-11.3, special exception for an oversized accessory structure located at 64 Harbor Street, Michael and Jennifer Bennick, applicants and owners. At said hearings, all persons will have the right to be heard. Copies are on file in the Planning and Zoning Commission's office at the Planning and Zoning Department, 1019 Main Street, Branford, Connecticut 06405. Written communications may be sent to the above address or to planning and zoning at Branford-ct.gov. Branford Planning and Zoning Commission, C. Andres, chairperson.
Chuck Anderson here. Thank you, Fred.
Yep.
We'll follow our normal format for public hearings, which is that the applicant goes first, makes its presentation, including any comments from any consultants. After that, we turn it over to the commission staff. We typically hear from a summary of a staff report from the staff, open up for questions, comments from the commissions. At that point, we open it up for public comment. And I'll ask Evan shortly to go through the process for public participation. I ask that you state your name and address for the record, make your comments. After the public portion, we allow the applicant to respond to any part of the public portion, and we also open it up for further questions and comments from staff. We may or may not continue the public hearing depending on how it goes. And with that, Evan, can you just run through the process for participating in the public hearing?
Sure. When prompted and you'd like to speak during the public hearing, you can, down at the bottom of your screen, there is a reactions button. You can select raise hand. If you'd like to participate, you can also type your comments into the chat. If that all fails, try to wave your hand in front of the camera. I'll try to catch you. If you're dialing in by phone, you can press *9, and we ask that everybody please state their name at the beginning of their comment or question.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Evan. We have a number of public hearings scheduled, but also on our agenda at the very end under other business is an 824 referral regarding the Supply Ponds Bridge. And I understand that our town engineer is presenting that and has made the request to be heard early on that. And I don't expect that will take too long. So perhaps if someone might want to make a motion to allow that item to be heard first on the agenda.
Fred
Chadwick
Russo,
will make
so
the-
moved.
We'll give it to Joe, the motion, a second by Fred. Any further discussion? All in favor? Joe Chadwick,
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred,
Fred Russo's in favor.
Joe Vayuso,
Are you so in favor?
Marcy,
Marcy's in favor.
and Chair's also in favor. So let's hear the 824 referral. Who's presenting that, Harry? Is that going to be?
That would be our town engineer, John Hefferly, who I've made a co-host. So John, jump right in.
All right, thank you. And I appreciate you moving me up on the agenda here. I'll try to keep it brief. So we have, I think you're all well aware of the supply ponds. Where the bridge is it bisects kind of the northern pond versus the southern pond. We believe it was built probably around the WPA era. So sometime, it's 30s. It's pretty old. And those of you who know it intimately, we have kind of power pole guide rails and things like that. The concrete bridge itself is pretty deteriorated along the water line. So we hired a consultant to go out and actually inspect it. It's not on the state inspection list, and it came back as critical and needing replacement. So we did apply for and was granted a state local bridge grant, which is a 50-50 grant for cost sharing with the town and the state. One thing I don't have are plans yet, which is the reason that we're here for the 824 is the finance director typically, when he goes out for a bond issue, which is the funding source identified for the bridge project, they do need the 824, kind of help sell the bond funds for that. So with the 824, the finance director would be free to kind of sell the bonds, and we can move forward with full design. But so it will be a bridge replacement. It will need to meet all of the current standards for a bridge, so it will be widened. Right now, I don't think you could pass two cars. It's normally a one car at a time kind of bridge. So we'll have to be widened. We plan to have provisions to have pedestrian access across the bridge, which it currently does not. So we're kind of envisioning either something cantilevered off the bridge or perhaps a sidewalk along the traveled way of the bridge. This will have, as part of the grant program, we're required to have a public outreach. So we will have further outreach, try to figure out, how we want this to look. And, we're not looking for just a concrete parapet walls and, just a standard bridge across the ponds. We understand it's an open space. It's a really scenic place. So, there will be some treatment to the facade of the bridge that we want it to look nice. And again, is kind of stressed that we need to have that pedestrian access across the bridge, which currently does not have. So that's the reason for the 824. Again, it will be widened, so that certainly puts it under the 824 requirement. And again, I'm sorry I don't have plans, but we just don't have the funding in place yet to really get those plans to present to you. But that's kind of the project in a nutshell. I'm certainly open to any questions.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, Mr. Hefferly. Harry or Evan, do you have any comments from staff point of view?
Harry Smith, town planner, really don't. Other than general guidance in the plan of conservation development regarding maintaining town facilities and open space areas, there's nothing specific in there about this bridge. So there's really nothing else we can offer you. 824, as you know, is pretty. The guidance in the statute's pretty limited, so not even really sure this is significant. I think those are the words from the statute, improvement, but to err on the side of caution, I think finance and the engineering department thought they should file the 824 referral just to get input from the commission.
Thank you, Harry. Any questions or comments from commission members?
I have a question, Marcy Paluzzi. Maybe I missed this, John, but I'm just curious, what's the material on the existing bridge? Is it steel? And do you see the new bridge being the same type of construction?
The bridge now is this is John Heffley, the town engineer. The bridge now is a really old concrete mix. So it's it's made with really like a round stone inside the mix. So that's what's kind of further deteriorating. So it's concrete underneath. And then everything you see up above, like from the roadway surface up, the only thing that's there are, a couple of power poles on either side of the bridge. And I think Evan may have some photos of that he may be able to share. I'm sorry, I'm not on my computer, but it's not, we're able to keep it the way it is because it's old, but it certainly wouldn't pass any type of standard at this point in time. But we do imagine, sorry, I didn't finish to answer your question, the new bridge where it's likely to be concrete. It's 20 feet deep at that location, which was surprising to me when we actually measured down. So it will be a substantial structure underneath, and up above from the pavement up. The current standards are you're going to have some sort of parapet wall to keep vehicles from entering the ponds, and then some type of guide rail system. So there are options out there that are much more palatable than others. This isn't going to be a DOT bridge. We drive the design of the bridge. So, and like I said, we will have a public component to that where we can kind of get some ideas from the public.
Chuck Anderson, thank you, John. Any further questions, comments from commission members? Then thank you. I'm familiar with the bridge. Go fishing there with the grandkid, get some nice bluegill and sunfish from there. It sounds like it's an improvement both from the vehicular and pedestrian point of view. It's in a well-used park within the town. It sounds consistent with our general public's open space recreational goals in our POCD. So if someone would like to make a motion to make a positive 824 referral with respect to this request.
I'll make Marcy here a motion in the affirmative for positive 824 referral for the bridge.
Motion made by Marcy for a positive 824 referral for the improvements for the bridge. Is there a second?
Joe Chadwick and his dog, who are frequent customers of the site, second that motion.
Second by Joe Chadwick. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Joe Chadwick.
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo.
Fred Russo in favor.
Joe Bayuso.
Bayuso in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
And Chair is also in favor. So thank you, Mr. Hefferly.
No, thank you. And just to add one more thing, I believe it will come back to you guys because we will need obviously a wetlands permit. So I think that will trigger possibly a planning and zoning kind of review at that point too. So you guys will probably see it again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
With that, then we'll turn to our public hearings. First, items 1, 2, and 3 are Cherry Hill Estates, LLC, 26 Cherry Hill Road, PDD master plan modifications, special exception modifications, and site plan modifications. It's a continuation of public hearing. I believe we must close the hearing on this evening. So with that, is the applicant ready to make further presentation?
Can everyone hear me?
Yes, Mr. Herb.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. I'm here tonight on behalf of Cherry Hill Estates LLC regarding the 3 items for public hearing, which are scheduled for tonight's meeting of December 7th, 2023. Before I begin my presentation this evening, I just want to put 2 things out there. First, I understand that we're dealing with statutory timelines for when the public hearing must close. I have seen in the past that commissions that I've appeared before have made exception to that because that statutory time frame is for the benefit of arguably the applicant. So if the applicant is agreeing to anything beyond this, we would be willing to. If the commission does not have an appetite for that, then I'm inclined to withdraw and reapply. But before I do that, there are certain things that I want to clarify and get some guidance from the commission on, because I think it's important to the adjudication of either this application or a future application. So if I can, I just want to raise some of these issues for consideration by the commission.
Okay, it sounds like the first question you raised is a procedural question of whether we would continue the public hearing, even though it would be beyond the statutory authority, on the ground that the applicant would authorize that. My inclination would be not to do that. And the other alternative would be to withdraw and reapply. I understand that. When we have in the past had these statutory deadlines, I think that's the alternative we have used. And that would be, I personally would prefer to stay within what the law says for these things. So of the 2 options, that would be my preference. Any other, so let's stick with that question on the procedural question.
Sure.
Other comments from commission members or thoughts or comments? Is it fair to say then that commission members agree with me? I don't.
Yeah, we have to rely on your, expertise on this. I mean, this is a procedural detail that we can't just say, oh, what the heck, and have it come back and bite us later.
Yeah. Does staff have any comments?
Harry Smith, town planner. No, I'll defer to you, Chuck, and your legal expertise.
Okay. I mean, that would be my, of the 2 alternatives. That's, I think that's been done before. We've had a number that get up against it. We may have another one on this application tonight that you withdraw and resubmit. So with that, then I understand Mr. Herbst to assist you in a future application. Then sounds like you had some other questions. I have no idea whether we could answer them or not, or whether now would be the appropriate forum, but go ahead and maybe we could help out.
Sure. So as the Planning and Zoning Commission is well aware, there was an application to modify the PDD, and concurrent with that, a special exception application was filed by the applicant through this office, primarily because there was determinations made earlier this year that there were deviations from the approved plan. This was referred to the TCRB for their review and consideration. We appeared before them, and frankly, Mr. Chairman, what I have become concerned with that process is that while this commission has regulations that it follows, there was, in my opinion, a very subjective standard at the TCRB that was of concern to my client and to me. And I know that you're relying upon their recommendations in adjudicating the application. That being said, I had the occasion to go to town hall yesterday and review files in both the building department and zoning department. And earlier today, Mr. Senecola, who is the building official for the town of Branford, provided me with their permit file. And the reason why he provided that was I raised a question earlier today in an email to Mr. Smith and to Mr. Senecola that, pursuant to 8-3 subsection F of the Connecticut General Statutes, in order for any building permit to issue, there has to be review and sign off by the official charged with enforcing the zoning regulations. So what I'm trying to drill down on is that first, and I've said this before and I'll say it again, I will be the first to acknowledge and concede that my client has deviated from the approved plan. I'll be the first to acknowledge and concede that it needs to get fixed. However, what I think is making this process complicated is that I do believe that we are operating with a moving target. And what I mean by that is the TCRB has an impression and an opinion and a strong opinion of what they believe the approval was, their advisory. And when you go through the file that Mr. Senecola provided to me this morning, and I can submit this all for the record, the building department cannot issue the permit until zoning reviews it, wetlands reviews it. There's a whole checklist. And when you go through each of the building reports that Mr. Senecola provided, it is clear that there were plans that were submitted to the building department for their review with the building permit. It's unclear to me whether the other departments, all of the other departments, reviewed those plans that were in fact submitted. And those plans were used as the predicate for arguably issuing the building permit. So zoning doesn't just sign off once, they sign off twice. They sign off when the building permit is issued to commence construction, and they issue the zoning or notice of zoning conformity for purposes of the CO. So what we're trying to drill down on in addressing the concerns that have been raised is what plan are we operating off of in determining whether changes should or should not be granted. So there was a plan that was submitted to the building department that other departments signed off on before the building permit was issued. And what we're trying to drill down on is to say, okay, this is the set of plans at this point in time that were reviewed by town staff that we're going to operate off of. And these are the changes we're making versus there being multiple iterations of a plan that we're seeking to modify. So that is the concern that I have, especially given the fact that I went through those reports that Mr. Senecola provided today. And there were instances where building pushed back on certain items that were submitted. They stated those reasons why. Wetlands approved with certain conditions. And when I go through the 4 reports that Mr. Senecola provided, in each one of them, when it goes to planning and zoning, it says Dylan Willett approved, and I believe he's your former zoning enforcement officer. It gives the date of the approval, and then it says no comments. So I'm just trying to ascertain if the building permit was issued and if the permitting departments reviewed the permit request and arguably the plans that were submitted with it, what was reviewed and vetted by staff that is now perhaps being asked to be brought back before you for your review and consideration. And I think it's starting to, I think we have to drill down on this if we're going to fix this. And I wanted to come before the commission, before I withdraw without prejudice, to raise these issues because I think it is a bona fide concern. Because even if we acknowledge that there have been deviations in the plan, Mr. Maneri or any applicant for that matter can't commence construction until a process is followed. And before Tony Senecola issues that building permit, the zoning authority is required by statute and state building code to review it and to either certify or not certify that it comports with the regulations. Other permitting departments review it, offer their input. The building official offers his input, reviews and vets it, and then a permit is either issued or not issued. So that is the concern that we have.
Chuck Inscher, thank you, Mr. Herbst. Harry, do you have any comments?
Harry Smithtown staff. I concur largely and think in everyone's interest to be absolutely sure what plans were approved by the zoning enforcement officer during the building permit process is very important. As far as I understand it, there is no double review per se as a standard practice, that depending on the project and the permit application, there may be a review by the zoning enforcement officer of an initial set of plans submitted with a building permit application. And once those plans may be sometimes altered, particularly the construction plans, in ways that don't affect the zoning approval. It's possible in this case there may have been alterations that resulted in a set of building permit plans approved that did not match what was approved by Planning and Zoning Commission. My understanding in this case, and I really need to go back for a second, I think double checking everything is crucial. My understanding is initially for the building permit application for all 4 buildings, the plans were submitted where the plans were approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm going to stop there though, because I think everything should be double checked, and considering the fact that the application is likely going to be withdrawn, there's really no need. I mean, if we were going to stop and continue to deliberations, I'd probably suggest we include the record of the 4 building permit applications, just so they would be available to the commission after the end of the public hearing, should the applicant concur with that, just by reference. But at this point, I don't think, if I will do that if, the application is not withdrawn, because I think it's crucial to have those included as part of the record so they can be evaluated should this continue to a closed public hearing and deliberations.
Chuck Inscher, thank you, Harry. Okay, my sense here is that this is all the more reason for withdrawal and resubmittal. Is that it sounds like Mr. Herbst discovered some new information when you did a review yesterday. A possible discrepancy between the plans the zoning officials signed off on versus the ones that were approved, at least for some, but not all. So anyway, it would be good to get, and I agree with staff that let's figure out who approved what. and try to iron that out, and then it would be a better idea to then you can reapply. It can be more specific and give more details as to what you're seeking. And frankly, maybe it would help clarify because as soon as you reapply, it's going to go back before town center, and it could help in that process as well. So those are my comments. So Mr. Herbst, I hope that provides some guidance for you.
Sure. Consistent with that, because obviously, our concern is, are we being asked to do things which might have otherwise been approved through the permitting process? That's what we're concerned about, and that's what we want to drill down on. That being said, I feel very strongly that in addition to doing that, if we're going to withdraw and reapply, I would like to take this December 1 memo that was issued by staff, and before we refile, I want to go through this memo in the context of what was approved in permitting at the permitting level, to literally line by line address these concerns, determine what might have been approved in permitting and what not. And then once we do that and take those issues off the table, then focus on those items where there is deviation that was perhaps not reviewed by staff that we have to correct at the commission level. So I think I'm just stating this on the record because the whole commission's here. I want to be very candid and forthright in putting this out on the table. I'm here to help try to fix this, but I can't fix something if I don't have a proper assessment of what might have transpired after the commission approved the application and while it went through permitting review by not only planning and zoning, but wetlands and building and even perhaps WPCA. For example, in Mr. Smith's memo, we talk about the at the end of the memo, the issue of the propane tanks versus gas tie-in. At a previous meeting, this was raised extensively by a resident. And I can tell you when I went through the building permit file, an application was made for the propane tanks. It was certified and it was approved. So if that was not part of the approval, it should have never made its way through permitting and been approved by any permitting department. Should have never issued. So that's essentially what we're getting at. And I would ask Mr. Chairman if the commission would agree to waive the application fees if we withdraw and resubmit in light of the information that was discovered yesterday and into today. And I also would like to, before we leave tonight and before I withdraw, just submit these things for the record. Even though it's a withdrawal, I'd like to just put it out there, put it on the record, make sure it's in the record, and then find out from your staff, with all of you present, when the next time frame is to allow for filing and when it would be heard, because we're also dealing with the state's attorney's office, and I won't get into that because you're all aware of that. So we're dealing with multiple issues on multiple fronts.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Herbst. I think that your statement, I understood our staff, Harry, to agree with you that it is necessary and to know what plans, to get all that factual information, what the plans were that were signed off versus what we approved, and to figure all that out. So I don't think there's any pushback on that. Your second question is when would be the in terms of deadlines if you were to withdraw and resubmit? I think the next one, I mean, you could submit it as soon as you're ready, and it would be deemed submitted the date of the next regular meeting following the actual day of submission, right? I mean, was that your question as to, I think it would be the January 7th. I mean, it depends when you actually finish your work and resubmit it. And then it would be, then it would be deemed, and we have 65 days, then you'd have a new application process. The other question you asked is, were we willing to waive the public hearing? I think we've done that in the past. We've allowed withdrawals and resubmittal and waive the public hearing. But Harry, am I correct on that?
Are you talking about the fees for the applications?
Yes.
Okay.
That was one. Yeah.
That's been done in the past. That's correct.
Right. I think so. So I think that's, I don't have any problem with that. So did I understand your question though?
You did. I want to introduce the items I referenced, just even though I'm withdrawing, I'm a stickler for the record, and I just like to indicate what I'm going to be putting into the record. I can screen share it if you want, or I could send it directly to Harry, but I think I should at least tell you what I would like to submit. And that's Connecticut General Statutes 8-3F, Connecticut State Building Code, specifically section 105.3.1.1. And then I would like to introduce the 4 reports provided by Mr. Senecola earlier today. Report 1 is B-21-01647. Report 2 is B-21-01648. Report 3 is B-21-01649. And report 4 is B-21-01650. I'm going to be submitting these to the town planner for the record. And as I noted, the last document I referenced is the report that was produced by Mr. Senecola, which details review by engineering, wetlands, building, zoning, and I think that's it. So I'm going to submit those for the record. I'm going to send them to Harry.
Okay, thank you, Chuck and Sheriff. Thank you, Mr. Herbst. So would it be your intent? I understand you've identified those. You'll send them to Harry, so we'll have them in this record for this case. Is it your intent to now withdraw the application? Because otherwise we got to open up the public hearing, let public speak or whatever. Or if you're going to withdraw it, we can just you can do that, and then we would simply move on to the next items on the agenda.
At this time, we're going to withdraw, and we intend to reapply, and we intend to reapply as quickly as possible. And our intent is to address the comments in Mr. Smith's 12-1 staff report, and also the issues I've raised that Mr. Smith acknowledged as well.
Thank you, Mr. Herbst. Harry, did you have further comments?
Harry Smith, Town Planner. Just for sake of clarity, Mr. Herbst is talking about all three applications regarding 26 Cherry Hill Road that are currently before the commission?
Yes.
The PDD master plan modification, special exception modification, and the PDD site plan modification.
We will resubmit all three.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments from anyone? Hearing none then. Okay, yeah, excuse me?
I'm sorry, will we have access to the background material behind the building officials' reports? Because one of the things that seems to be at the crux of a lot of this is what was submitted, what was approved, compared to what was actually built. And I'm just curious to see what, in terms of actual documentation, was submitted, approved, and built.
Harry Smith, Town Planner. I believe all that is public record, but again, I mentioned before, I think it's crucial that the entire record of those four building permit applications and building permit issuances likely will be part of the record of the next application.
Okay.
If Mr. Herbst does not object, we can include them in the record of this application, and we could simply forward the entire record of this application into the following applications. But
that I am okay with that, and that's exactly why I introduced those three items about 3 weeks ago, because I would like this record to be incorporated into the next hearing when I refile the applications.
Okay. Would you object to including the entire record of those four building permit applications that you cited the reports concerning?
I don't see how I could object, but again, I have not reviewed the documentation that was submitted, which was the predicate for the approval. And if things were submitted that shouldn't have been submitted, I'd like the opportunity to review that. And I'd like the opportunity to also explore and ascertain if there were items that might have been submitted to building that weren't submitted to zoning, or items that were submitted to zoning that might not have been submitted to building. To Commissioner Chadwick's point, I think we have to drill down on what was approved at the commission level, what was approved at the staff level for purposes of permitting, and what has actually been constructed. So I'm not going to say I won't object. I'm not going to say I will object. I want the opportunity to review the whole file now to see what was submitted to each permitting department, because it would appear that there are inconsistencies.
I'm not sure entirely parse that, but regardless, I think it's only fair that you have the opportunity to object if I'm going to seek to include by reference documents I don't have physically, here to include in the record. But we can always do that in the record of the next three applications, is get the actual documents and include them. So one way or another, that's fine. I don't need to do it now. So.
Okay. Great. So thank you. So Mr. Herbst, so are you now officially withdrawing these three applications?
We are, and I thank you for your time and your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, and we will confer with staff and refile as quickly as possible.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Herbst.
Thank you.
Okay, so items number 1, 2, and 3 have been withdrawn. If you're here on those items, those applications are withdrawn. They will be resubmitted, and we'll start the clock again, and there will be an additional public hearing on those. So stay tuned if you're here on those. If you're here on the public. That brings us into item number 4, which is 1064 Main Street LLC, care of Angela Mozzarella, applicant and owner, 1032-64 Main Street, special exception for limited retail. Is the applicant ready to proceed with that?
The applicant is not here tonight. There was a mix-up with the mailed notice requirements. So Harry, should this be just continued to the next meeting, or should we open and continue?
I think you can open and continue as long as the notice requirement is met before there's any actual, the hearings actually, anything of substance takes place.
Okay, so then I guess that the individual notices to the abutters, apparently that wasn't done, so we can open this and continue it, and that could get done until we have the full hearing. And we are continuing when's our next meeting?
Next Thursday, December 14th.
Is that, so we would do this on December 14th?
Yeah, it's a special meeting. It's basically a workshop meeting, but we can add this on.
Okay, this is, okay.
If you,
So then, okay, so we will continue this item to our special meeting scheduled for December 14th, also a Zoom meeting at 7 p.m. Is that correct?
Sounds like it.
Okay. So if you're here on that's being continued. That brings into item number 5, which is Lakeview Center Associates LLC, care of attorney Kevin Crusaden. This is 249-251 West Main Street, special exception for a gym. See, applicant ready to proceed with that one.
Harry, could you make Kevin Crusaden?
I just did.
I think there's a few more. Arson Sapsa.
I'm not seeing him, but I will look again. Oh, there I see. Okay.
Kevin, is there anyone else you'd like to be able to speak?
Ed De Laurentiis. He's showing as Ed Dell.
Got it.
Here. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission and staff. For the record, my name is Kevin Crusaden with the law firm of Crusaden and Moore, and my office address is at 3 Lafayette Street in Milford, Connecticut. I'm here tonight with Mr. De Laurentiis, who is a principal or a member of Lakeview Center Associates LLC, the owner and applicant for this property and for this application, and also is the potential tenant, Mr. Arson Sapsa, I believe I'm pronouncing it correctly, who is the gym owner who would like to establish a gym at this location. This is an existing site. It looks like from the records that the buildings have existed, most of them anyway, since at least 1986. It's a little over a 10-acre site. We're not proposing any changes to the site. We're proposing a use, a new use, introducing it to the site, or a new use for this unit anyway. It's a 9,000 square foot space approximately, and the use would be a gym owned by Mr. Sapsa, who's here with us this evening in case anybody has any questions. The gym operates 24/7. I think that one of the primary concerns for this, as far as what I can tell from the staff memo by Evan, who's been great to work with and very helpful during this process, was the parking count. I originally had the parking count at 1 per 250. I was corrected, and we had changed it to 1 over 175. I can try to share my screen here and show you what we've done as far as we went under the mixed use parking table calculation of your regulation versus the regular use, because we do have a lot of different types of uses on site. And let's see, I think that this is, hopefully you can see my screen there where we had the parking calculation. that we originally submitted. Evan noted some discrepancies and also asked for some clarifications. And that's when I went to the section 6.5.h, the mixed use calculation of your regulations. And I broke it down by use and square footage. And then I went under the weekday, weekend, and nighttime timetable. Also, we had done an additional parking lot or parking space survey, and there was actually 358 spaces, including 26 spaces for accessible spaces. And we determined, based on this calculation, that at the worst case scenario, or the highest amount of people parking or cars in the lot, would be 350 or 349.7 to be more exact. And we actually have 358 spaces lined right now. There's additional space on the other side of this building. It used to be a playscape area for the previous daycare, but we have not proposed any changes to the site plan application at this time, but there is additional space that could be striped if necessary for some future use. So we believe it's a good use for the site, and Mr. De Laurentiis is excited to have this potential tenant. And pending your questions of me or the applicant or the potential end user, that really completes our application. Thank you for presentation. Thank you.
Checking to share. Thank you, Mr. Crusaden. Evan, did you prepare the staff report on this one?
I did. Like Attorney Crusaden had described for us, they are proposing to occupy a space that was formerly a daycare with a indoor recreation use. No exterior changes are proposed. They meet the bulk requirements of the BL district. No landscaping was provided. I think Mr. Crusaden went over pretty well my concerns about the parking requirements. I believe the totals for that shared parking wound up with a total requirement of 349 spaces. And like you said, they have a total of 358 spaces. So they do meet the off-street parking requirements. No change to the existing lighting is proposed as part of this application. And based on the application materials presented, the applicant satisfies the special exception criteria. Staff recommends one finding, that the commission finds that the proposed use of the property is consistent with the special exception criteria, and one condition that all conditions of previous approval shall remain in full force and effect.
Checking to share. Thank you, Evan. Questions or comments from commission members or staff before we open up to the public? Hearing none, then let's open up to the public. Does any member of the public wish to comment? And Evan, can you remind us once again how we can do that?
Sure. Down at the bottom of your screen, we have a reactions button. From there, you can press raise your hand if you'd like to speak. You can also type into the chat that you'd like to comment or ask any questions. And just ask that everybody please state their name at the beginning of their comment.
Evan, you see anybody?
I do not see anyone.
Okay. Any further comments then from the applicant?
No, thank you for your time and consideration.
Excellent. Any further comments from commission members or staff? Hearing none, then I think we can close this matter as a public hearing, and this may be an item we can take up in a little bit. Thank you, Mr. Crusaden. That brings us then to item number 6. Michael Bennick, applicant and owner, 64 Harbor Street, special exception for oversized accessory structure. Is the applicant ready to proceed with that one?
Harry, could you make Jeff Beatty and I believe Jay Bennick is Mr. Bennick, the property owner.
Michael Bennick is here, and I believe Jeff is as well.
Yes, I am.
Jeff, did you need me to share my screen or anything?
No, I don't think so. If you could, as I go through it, that'd be great, Evan. Thank you. Sure. Jeffrey Beatty for the applicants, 705 Boston Post Road, Guilford, Connecticut. This is our special exception application in connection with the approval of in connection with the proposed demolition of an existing garage on the premises, and then the reconstruction of the garage with a second-story addition on top of it. The garage is existing, has been there since I believe it was constructed in the 1930s, and we've received the necessary variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals at its October 17th meeting earlier this year. We're here because we're increasing the size of the accessory structure over 15 feet to a height of 22 feet. We believe that the proposed structure will be in keeping with the characteristics of the neighborhood. There are a number of houses, as you can see from the plan, that have existing detached garages in a similar location to the ones being proposed by Dr. and Mrs. Bennick. We've notified the neighboring property owners of the proposed project. They've submitted letters initially to the Zoning Board of Appeals, but we've attached copies of them to the application before this commission, voicing expressing their support for the application. We think that the application complies with the plan of conservation and development, and that preserves the existing character of the neighborhood. Most of the houses on Harbor Street were built in the 1930s, and the plan that the Bennecks have is to maintain the look and feel of the neighborhood, just slightly increasing the size of the structure to incorporate a studio and workspace along with a restroom on the second floor. We're not planning on increasing. There shouldn't be any increase in traffic. There shouldn't be any increase in stormwater runoff. They're not proposing any sort of activities outside of the accessory use that I just mentioned that would have any negative impact on the neighborhood or their directly adjacent neighbors. And for those reasons, we'd ask that the commission consider approving this application, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Chuck, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Beatty. Evan, did you do the staff report on this one?
I did, like Attorney Beatty had described for us. They're proposing the addition of a second floor onto an existing garage, or the reconstruction of that garage with a second story. It exceeds that 15-foot height requirement for a special exception. That's why they're here before you today. They meet the bulk requirements of the R3 district. They received some variances in October from the Zoning Board of Appeals for the enlargement of a non-conforming structure and for expansion of a structure within 1.6 feet of the side property line. No landscaping plan was provided, and the applicant meets the off-street parking space requirement. No lighting information was submitted, but a condition has been added that would require any lighting to be compliant with section 6.7. Based on the application materials, it appears that the special exception criteria are satisfied. Staff recommends the following findings. One, that the commission finds that the proposed use of the property is consistent with the special exception criteria. And two, that this approval exclusively applies to the addition of a second story above an existing 640 square foot garage. No change in use from the approved single family home is a part of this application, and the addition of any units or an accessory apartment would need approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission. I don't recall if Mr. Beatty had described, but the space is proposed to be used as a home office for Mr. Bennick. So I just put this in here just to confirm that it can't be utilized as an additional unit or an accessory apartment. The following conditions are proposed. Prior to construction, erosion control measures shall be installed if deemed necessary by the zoning enforcement officer, and also necessary measures to control any dust or fill brought in any dust generated by fill brought into the site or movement of earth materials on site shall be implemented. And our second condition is that any lighting has to be compliant with section 6.7 of our lighting regulations.
Chuck, Chair. Thank you, Evan. Any questions or comments from commission members or staff before we open up to the public? Hearing none, then let's open up to the public. Does any member of the public wish to comment on this application?
Sir, I have a question related to the building. Assuming you in fact grant the height variance that we've asked for, the soffit as drawn on the current structure is in keeping with the character of the current garage, but is greater than the 4 inches that R301 or 302.1 recommends, and we were hoping that we didn't have to shorten the soffit from the 9 inches as drawn to the 4 inches as suggested in the exception.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Does it exceed the height?
No, the height exists as we wanted to 22 feet, but when the roof comes down, it extends within the 2 feet to the boundary line.
Okay, you're talking about setback issue.
Yes, and so we received the variance for that setback, and we just want to emulate the current structure, which extends 9 inches towards that boundary line, as opposed to the 4 inches that is recommended in the exception rule R302.1.
I think that exception is
the building code?
By the building code, not
all right, that sounds right. Yeah.
Yes.
To the zoning regulations.
Oh, okay. So we don't have anything to do with the building code.
Gotcha. Okay. Then it's just the issue of the height.
Okay. I mean, we're approving whatever you submitted. I mean, whatever the plan shows is what we don't want to.
If what we sent the plan is being approved, we're very happy.
Well, Harry Smith, town planner, let me ask you a question, sir. If I understand it correctly, there is some change required by the building code for your application ultimately to comply with the building code. And what I'm wondering is if that change would affect the plans you submitted to planning and zoning such that you ultimately would not match those plans and what you may have to build to comply with the building code.
I don't think that, I don't know the answer to that question.
My understanding is that if the plans were to be changed, it wouldn't require an increase towards the setback line of the neighbors, which would not necessitate a new variance application. If anything, it would make the building smaller.
Maybe the other direction. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Whether we want to include some kind of condition. I mean, it sounds like it's so, we're talking inches, right?
Yes.
Right. So I don't think it even would read on the plans necessarily. So in terms of plans submitted here, construction level. Yeah. But okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think, Harry, if it was a minor, you could probably approve it if there was a difference between.
I could, but rather than have, Mr. Bennett submit another application for a minor, even if it's staff approval, or $160 fee, we could put some kind of condition saying minor changes within a foot of the building envelope, are included as part of this approval or something.
That would be perfect.
You have that variability right in the approval itself.
Yeah, I believe the restriction, if it's a building code restriction, has to do with the property of fire resistance and the neighboring lot line, because fire resistance is measured off of the neighboring lot line. That is a building code issue, and given the proximity of most buildings in Branford to the lot line, I find this very rarely enforced and very difficult to enforce. It's better for a building to have a broader eave to shed water, and the threat of fires is far less. And I recall looking at the plans, and there are the walls are supposedly 1 hour rated.
Yes.
I'm not quite sure how they're going to achieve that for the outside for flame spread and stuff like that, but I will take it for. It's not our job to assess that stuff, so I'll just look at it and go, okay. So I think this is kind of a non-issue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Penick. Are there any other member of the public that have any comments?
Just to reiterate, down at the bottom of your screen, there's a reactions button. From there, you can select raise hand if you'd like to comment or speak, or you can type your comments into the chat. I do not see anyone at this time.
Okay. Any further comments by the applicant? Mr.
No.
Beatty, Bennett?
No, the findings and conditions that were contained in Mr. Breining's memo are acceptable to my clients.
Thank you, Mr. Beatty. Do we want to include what Harry had suggested about the variations within a foot?
Yeah, I think that'd be helpful.
Harry, what was that language you were suggesting?
Something like variations in the building envelope, in the envelope of the building, foot or less, are included as part of this approval, as long as they don't result in any zoning noncompliance.
Okay.
That's
any
fine.
any other questions or comments from staff? Not then I think we can close this matter as a public hearing, and this may be something we can take up in a little bit.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Beatty, Mr. Mike.
Thank you.
Brings us in. We'll go through our minutes. Our minutes were from our November 16th meeting. I believe they were sent out. Do we I don't know if you had a chance to review those from our regular meeting for November 16th. And if someone would like to make a motion with respect to those minutes.
Fred Russo, I'll make that motion to approve the minutes.
Motion by Fred to approve the November 16 minutes. Is there a second?
Chadwick will second.
Second by Joe Chadwick. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Joe Chadwick.
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo.
Fred Russo's in favor.
Joe Bayuso.
Bayuso in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
And Chair is also in favor. So those minutes are approved. Let's go back to I know we have some correspondence, but let's go back to the public hearing items that we may be able to act on. I think the first item was the Lakeview Center application for 249-251 West Main Street. Evan, can you pull up your staff report and recommendations for that one? Again, this is the gym and the new gym, and it looks like they've addressed the parking question. They're in compliance. It's no change in the footprints, just a change of use, it looks like. Seen no public comments. I don't know if anyone had any thoughts, or if someone would like to make a motion to approve this application by adopting the findings and conditions in the staff report that Evan is presently projecting in front of us for this application.
Chadwick will make that motion.
Motion to approve the application with finding and condition by Joe Chadwick. Is there a second?
Fred Russo will second that motion.
Second by Fred. Any further discussion? All those in favor, Joe Chadwick.
Chadwick in favor.
Fred Russo.
Fred Russo's in favor.
Joe Bayuso.
Joe in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
And Chair is also in favor, so that application is approved. Brings us then to our next item, which is Mr. Bennick at 64 Harbor Street. That's the oversized accessory structure. And we're just going to add that additional condition that Harry's going to tell Evan what to write, right?
Harry's the templater. Variations in the building envelope, less than 1 foot, are considered part of this approval, as long as they don't create any zoning noncompliance.
Thank you, Harry and Evan. Okay. Okay, this is another one where no opposition, appears to be fairly straightforward. Two findings that Evan reviewed with us during the public hearing, and then the two, now three conditions. We just added that one. Anyone have any comments? And if not, does someone want to make a motion to approve the application by adopting the findings and conditions in the staff report that's presently being projected in front of us by Evan?
Fred Russo, I'll make that motion.
Fred makes a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Chadwick will second that motion with the advice that the applicant should look at table R302.1 for exterior walls, and that will satisfy the exception about the 4-inch overhang.
Second
So
by Joe.
Truly is a non-issue.
Second by Joe with that advisory comment from our resident architect. Motion is made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Joe Chadwick.
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo.
Fred Russo's in favor.
Joe Vayuzo.
All in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
And the chair is also in favor. Yeah, Joe just has that memorized. Yeah, check section 1.2.
No, I've got I keep
That's
three
right.
screens up during this. It was really easy to pull it up. Fire separation distances are always a problem, and nobody ever really takes care of them.
Show. Okay, that brings us correspondence. I think we did have an item correspondence, and that was something that was sent to us, I think during the week that Evan.
We do actually have two. So before we get to maybe the second one, we do have a communication regarding cell tower at 123 Pine Orchard Road, and they are intending to remove and replace 6 antennas at the 122-foot level. The antennas are to support 5G services, and there'll be some associated ground equipment within their existing ground space added. So there is that item. If anybody has any comments or wants to view the material, let me know. We also received a letter from Pat Dugan of 51 Harding Avenue. And I can read this if you'd like, because it's fairly short.
Put it on the screen.
I think I can. Let's see if I put it up here. I'm sorry. I don't know if Evan, do you have it? I think I can pull it off of an email where I sent it around.
If you can't find it, you can just read it.
All right, why don't I do that? It's 4 short paragraphs. Dear Chair Andres, it's dated November 15th, 2023. We received it in the office here on November 16th, 2023. As a resident of Branford, I'm writing to ask whether the Planning and Zoning Commission has ever approved concerts at Stony Creek Brewery. I ask this because I'm aware of no evidence of such approval. To the contrary, there is a letter to Edward Crowley of June 1st, 2022 by Branford's former zoning enforcement officer specifically saying the concerts were not a permitted use under Branford zoning regulations. And in parentheses, the word attached, and that communication is attached to the letter. In addition, as you may know, Stony Creek Brewery is now seeking authorization from the Connecticut Liquor Control Commission to add concerts to its permitted entertainment activities in connection with a pending liquor license approval. I would appreciate a prompt response to my question together with documentation, if any, that evidences that the Planning and Zoning Commission has already approved concerts at Stony Creek Brewery. Very truly yours, Pat Dugan, 51 Harding Avenue, and she CC'd all the members of the commission as well as myself.
Thanks, sir. And then there are 2 attachments. I think there was 2 letters from Dylan Willett, one dated June 1, 2022, and another one that I think was included with this letter, but then there was one that wasn't included with this letter, which is dated July 12th, 2022.
Yeah, the second one I have and can put up on the screen if you'd like, and we can get the other document up on the screen also. So I'll share my screen if you wish. So you should be able to see this letter. Again, this is from Dylan Willett, dated July 12th, 2022. And I'll just let everyone read that.
Thanks, Harry.
Okay. I'll stop sharing unless you want to go back to it.
Sure. I think the letter is a question, and then it says, ask whether the Planning and Zoning Commission has ever approved concerts by the Stony Creek Brewery. I think that was the substance of the letter, as asking. And the first letter basically said we have no evidence of approval, and then the second letter said having further discussions with town council. We're not proceeding with any zoning enforcement action with respect to the proposed events. So I think, my understanding is that whether Planning and Zoning Commission ever approved concerts at the Stony Creek Brewery, I don't know if the answer, I suspect the answer is no, but I don't know for sure. But another question is maybe that was implicit in some of the uses or an accessory use or something else. All I know is that there was the initial June, again, from the zoning enforcement officer letter saying, raising this issue, and then the later letter saying that we're not pursuing enforcement. So I think that is all I'm aware of in terms of answer to the question, is that I'm not aware that it has, but there may be other grounds that it's where it's authorized, either somehow part of the use or as an accessory use, but I can't say the answer. We typically, zoning enforcement is done by our zoning enforcement officer. That's what our regulations assign it. We assign our zoning enforcement to the zoning enforcement officer. I think if there's ever a lawsuit, we seek to go to court, we may be a co-plaintiff with the zoning enforcement officer, but generally zoning enforcement issues are delegated to our zoning enforcement officer. It looks like there was some looking at this issue, some response to the issue, and then there was an indication, although I don't know why, I don't know anything other than what those are in those two letters, as to whether the conclusion was not to seek enforcement at the time. And there may be further action that could be taken by the zoning enforcement officer, or there's a way to get, to review the zoning enforcement action that really isn't typically done by us, but it's through our zoning enforcement officer. And there's ways of appealing if someone disagrees with what the zoning enforcement officer says. So other than that, I don't know what more to say other than that's what my understanding. Harry, do you have any comments or thoughts? Or
Harry Smith, town planner. At this point, I really don't have a whole lot of additional information to offer. I do not recall any overt approval by the Planning and Zoning Commission of concerts per se. I know best of my recollection, there was discussion of events inside and on the porch of the brewery that were, basically musical accompaniment to other events or functions in the function room and the top floor and that kind of thing. And then in addition to you, I have, the two letters that have been presented tonight.
So I think there are ways to pursue this matter further through some zoning enforcement requests, but that's about all I am aware of. The other thing I want to make clear is that if there should be any issue regarding Stony Creek by this commission, at this point, I would have to recuse myself. I discovered that I'm a member of a law firm and that our other people in our law firm. We're representing someone that's has some litigation pending in a non-land use area with the Stony Creek Brewery. So I think I would have to recuse myself from any decisions related to the Stony Creek Brewery. I mean, I have no idea of what, litigation happens all the time. Most of the time it gets settled, but who knows? So right now, if there were any decisions, I would be recusing myself. Just state that for the record. Right now it's just a question. I think that was helping provide what we know. Other questions or comments from commission members or staff about this? Okay, then we can proceed then with our agenda, which is old business. Item number 1 is the Branford Real Estate LLC. This is a special exception that we need to schedule a public hearing, and I expect we could do that. Harry and I can figure that out probably sometime in January. Is that anything else on that one, Harry, that we need to pay attention to?
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah, we can talk further after the meeting about when it's appropriate to schedule a public hearing.
Okay. And next one is CSC Montoya Apartments LLC, applicant and owner. That's minor site plan modification, additional parking for existing apartments. Where does that one stand?
The reason this is on the agenda, this is actually a minor site plan modification. There's been some back and forthing about what's on the plans for it, and I think we're pretty close to resolution. However, we got to the end of the 65-day clock. At the commission's last meeting, we received the time extension offer from the applicant to take us to this meeting, and I've just received this afternoon another time extension offer to basically max out the time period for review of the application to January 29th, 2024, which would be the end of the statutory allowed period, just to give enough flexibility to hopefully close the matter, and then hopefully I can be able to prove it at the staff level. So, I mean, there's no action the commission needs to do other than accept the time extension, I suppose.
Okay. Okay, I see that Mr. John Hartwell has raised his hand. Again, we don't have any public hearing item, but let's hear what Mr. Hartwell may have a question. So happy to see that. Hopefully something we can question quickly. So Harry or Evan, can you open that up for Mr. Hartwell to ask his question?
Thank you, Mr. John Hartwell, 42 Quarry Dock Road. I want to go back to the letter that Pat Dugan had put in front of the commission, and I'd like a bit of a clarification here. You mentioned the 2 letters that from Dylan Winnett, the former zoning enforcement officer to the brewery. The first one on June 1st very clearly states that concerts are not a permitted use according to your own regulations. And it's only the July 12th letter that states that for reasons which we are not aware of, that the town council has decided that there would be no enforcement. So I like on the public record for you to acknowledge that very first letter of June 1st from Mr. Winnett actually says that concerts are not a permitted use, and that if the brewery went ahead with concerts, that there would be enforcement action. That's very clear in the letter, and it cites all of the required documentation having to do with zoning regulations.
Thank you, Mr. Hartwell. Anything else?
Well, I'm sorry. Can you respond to that?
I'm asking you if anything else, because I'm going to respond, but I want to know
the question very clearly in the letter from Ms. Dugan is, can you point to any action on the part of planning and zoning which has specifically permitted concerts in this space? And this is a very important issue. And you had 2 weeks to take a look at it. So, if you can't answer that tonight, can you please let us know when you'll be able to answer it?
Thank you, Mr. Hartwell. I think we did answer it. The answer was, and I think Harry, I think the letters are self-explanatory, and that's all we know. There may be, you're asking for the reasons why the second letter was written, and I don't know.
No, sir.
What
I'm
I did,
I'm sorry, I haven't asked that. I've asked
okay.
I
think
wanted
the
it
answer
on the
was,
record. I wanted it on the record that the very first letter was definitive, and that you had not mentioned that in your summation of these two letters. So on the record, please, it very clearly says from your zoning enforcement officer that these things were not permitted, and that if concerts took place, that there would be enforcement action.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Hartwell. So getting back to the letter was, I'm writing to ask whether the Planning and Zoning Commission has ever approved concerts at Stony Creek Brewery. And I think, Harry, the answer was, we're not aware of any. But was there any, and I added the caveat, that doesn't mean that it's not allowed through as an accessory use or some other implicit in the use. I don't know. All we know is what is in those letters. So that, I believe that's all we know. Harry, is there anything else and I think there is a way of, making the inquiry further or requesting enforcement action through the zoning enforcement action that can be undertaken.
Certainly.
And I would suggest consulting with an attorney if you have some further questions about the process for that.
Absolutely, sir. We agree that that's the case. But what we're asking is there specifically a time when you have, allowed, specifically said to the brewery that they could have concerts, because they are saying that you have. And so we need to clear that up.
Okay, thank you. Harry, do you have anything to add?
I don't really, other than what I said before. I'm not aware of any such approval. And best of my recollection, I've been here 9 years, pretty much the entire lifespan of the brewery, though I was not here for its original approval prior to my arrival in 2015. I just really don't have anything else to offer at this point, unfortunately.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on then to item number, the third item under the old business is 40 CT Connecticut Avenue Associates LLC, 11 Laurel Hill Road. Special exception for grading. Is this one, we also need a public hearing on that one?
Harry Smith, town planner, yes, and it's essentially same kind of situation. I would suggest the chair and staff work out when the public hearing would be set. It would likely be in January.
Okay. Okay, that brings into new business. The first one, BC Investment Properties LLC, 175 Cherry Hill Road. This is a modification of the March 23rd approval of the 11 lot re-subdivision. Harry, what's going on with that?
Harry Smith, town planner. Let's see, best thing to put up here. I think I'll share my screen and give the commission a little bit of background. So I'm sure will recall earlier this year, subdivision was approved at 175 Cherry Hill Road, essentially the end of Cherry Hill Road, on property that lies between the end of Cherry Hill Road and Autumn Ridge, the Autumn Ridge development, 11 lot re-subdivision. I'm going to swap over here and just show. I guess I need to stop this 1 second. I apologize. I can't click through something, so I'd go back and forth. So when subdivisions are approved, applicants have choices as to how they will propose the approval of subdivision. There are two options for what's called final approval. One is final approval, no financial guarantee required. This is for situations where there are not any any public improvements. There's an option for final approval, financial guarantee provided for a situation like this, where there's a new subdivision road being proposed as part of the subdivision and associated improvements. And there's also a third option called conditional approval. This is when situation could be like this, a subdivision where there are public improvements proposed, but the applicant does not want to post the financial guarantee and simply wants to file the subdivision plan on the land records, begin construction of the public improvements, not sell any lots of the subdivision, and not begin any construction of houses, I understand, without posting a financial guarantee, the applicant would need a different actual approval block on it. Pages of the subdivision plan that we filed in land records need a signature block for the signature of the chair or the secretary of the commission. So this is the block that was on the plans down here. And the applicant would like to change that to, this is all the specifics about the financial guarantee. This is all out of the subdivision regulations. Would like to change it to this. Now, also, they would like to there was a condition on the approval that required, because they were proposing it as a final approval subdivision, that also sort of belt and suspenders required the financial guarantee to be provided prior to the signature on the subdivision plans, because it was proposed with that signature block on them. Now the applicant wants to go this conditional approval route. That condition creates a problem because they're not going to post the financial guarantee, and by state law don't have to. So I asked them to submit this application to remove the language from the approval. And again, I'm going to have to stop the share because I just can't click through it. Go back and show you the approval quickly. All right, so you should be able to see again the approval document. And these are the conditions that were adopted by the commission. The issue is 2C, which says establishment of financial guarantee according to the provisions of 6.02C of the subdivision regulations, except that the financial guarantee should not be in the form of a surety bond, which the commission is not required to accept. I would propose to settle the application that the commission change the wording of that condition to this wording here, which would say all the words that were in the original condition with the addition of, and that should the subdivider choose to file this approved subdivision record map as a conditional approval per section 6.02D, no financial guarantee would be needed. That will take care of the matter and resolve that problem with the condition and allow the applicant to go ahead and record the subdivision without, as a conditional approval without posting a financial guarantee. Sorry to be so long-winded, but I sort of wanted to take you through a little bit of the options for subdivision approval because we don't really talk about that too much during meetings since we don't get a lot of subdivisions. So, any questions?
No. So the request is that we approve a modification of the condition by adopting this new condition, which adds language to that condition 2C.
Right. And this would cover the option if the applicant chooses to change their mind, wants to file it, they would certainly need to post the financial guarantee, just to be totally clear.
So does everyone understand that? We're modifying condition to allow another way to do this that's legal and authorized, but
Not what they were originally proposing.
right. And the applicant's requesting this, right?
They are requesting change to the condition. Yes.
Okay.
Not this wording. This wording is suggested by staff.
This was based on that memo that the engineer sent this past week?
Yes.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions or comments about it? If not, then does someone make a motion to approve this modification of condition 2C by adding the additional language as suggested in Harry's memo that's presently dated December 7th, 2023, that's presently displayed before us?
Bruce will make that motion. So moved.
Motion by Fred to approve the modified condition. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Second by Joe Chadwick. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Joe Chadwick.
Joe Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo.
Fred Russo's in favor.
Joe Vayuso.
Joe Vayuso in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
And Chair is also in favor.
I was unfortunately, you've taken the motion. Let me stop scaring the screen. I don't know if anybody's here actually representing the applicant, but I can't imagine there.
What's Tim Lee? I thought I saw something in the chat. He's probably muted. I see him here.
Yeah, I can unmute him if he wants to comment on this, and we can always.
Yeah, why don't we unmute him? I think he.
And I apologize for that. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Tim Lee on behalf of the applicant. Appreciate the commission making the change to the condition. I think this satisfies our concern. It'll allow my client to go ahead and get started with this, record the map and get started with the subdivision. I think in the event he wants to convey a lot out, I think that in the future, before the road improvements are completed, I think under the statute, he can then post a bond with the commission. I don't anticipate that happening. I just want it's a possibility. So I just want to make sure that we reserve the right to do that if it comes to that.
Yeah. Harry, so understood.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Lee. That brings us into new business. Item number 1. We just did. So we're done with that. That brings us into other business. First item under other business is election of officers. I think that's by our bylaws, we're supposed to elect officers, I think the first meeting of December. I think the report from the nominating committee of Massimo was that to keep the present set, the present slate, which is Secretary Fred Russo and Chair Charles Anders. But anything else, Massimo, or are we missing anything?
No, it was unanimous. You guys are still in your current positions.
Okay.
And we're very happy to have you guys, by the way. You're doing a great job. Thank you so much.
There is one caveat. I may be taking on a client that meets on the first and third Thursdays in the evening at zoning commission. So I'm trying to get them to do special meetings, but you never know. So Fred may be running some meetings, so we'll see.
We'll see.
Okay, so then I guess we need a motion from somebody.
Chadwick makes that motion to maintain the current officer status.
Motion made by Joe Chadwick. Someone second it.
Massimo seconds.
Massimo seconds, although Massimo, I don't know if he can vote.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay.
Marcy second.
Okay, I think Marcy seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Joe Chadwick.
Chadwick is in favor.
Fred Russo.
Fred Russo's in favor.
Joe Vayuso.
Joe in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
And chair is also in favor. So,
So Harry Smith, town planner, technically I'm going to report, Chuck, your vote is for secretary and Fred's vote is for the chair. I don't know if you can vote for yourself, can you? Okay.
I vote
no any reason
Chuck.
why you can't actually. I don't know.
All right. But congratulations in any event.
Okay, the second one is interpretation of whether proposed lot at 126 Sunset Beach Road is an interior lot per the definition of section 2.2. Evan, tell us what's going on with this.
We had brought this to you in anticipation of a ZBA application that was originally scheduled to be in November. That meeting was unfortunately canceled due to a lack of a quorum. But we now feel that this conversation should start at the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting that's now scheduled for December 19th. And if any issues have to be referred to this commission, it should be done so after that conversation begins with them.
Okay, so we can table this item because it see how the ZBA deals with it. Okay. Okay, so item number 3 was the 824 referral, which we already took care of.
Chairman Andre, I believe one gentleman from the public would like to speak.
Sure. Sure, on item number
on 2. The interpretation.
Okay, sure.
And
who would like to speak?
Evan, who is that?
His Rafael Ashatino. He's
okay. You're unmuted, so you can.
Yeah. May I speak?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
We can.
Okay. My name is Rafael Ashatino. I live on 101 Sunset Beach Road. I'm not sure why this needs to be going to the ZBA first. It's a clear application of an interior lot, and the application is not being presented as an interior lot. I mean, the regulations are very clear. Interior lots are any lots that do not have adequate street frontage, which this lot clearly does. And for some reason, this whole application is not being presented as an interior lot. I understand the reason behind it because it creates additional variances that need to be requested from ZBA. And the reason why they're not bringing it up is because they don't want the additional variances to make this application even more complex. And it's very clear definition. Your regulations are very clear. Any lot that does not have the required frontage, which is, I believe, 90 feet, is an interior lot. Why can't this definition be clearly stated, and why isn't this applicant being informed that that is an interior lot?
I think the ZBA should be the one to discuss it at this point, and if it does have to get an interpretation from the commission, we can do it in January or at any other meeting.
Can I get just a definition? What is an interior lot? Based on the zoning
I
regulations.
think we'd have to refer you to section 2.2 and the definition in the regulations.
Well, and I've read it many times. It's any lot that does not have the required street frontage, which clearly this lot does not. So I'm not sure why it's not being considered an interior lot. It's puzzling.
We're not making that determination tonight.
Right. We're not making a decision. We haven't heard from the applicant. I mean, I don't know why he didn't apply for variances from other things. I don't know what his explanation is. That's why we're gonna let it go before. I mean, he could get his variances, but he couldn't build it because he didn't apply for a variance for the interior lot, if it is an interior lot. In any event, it's always good to have the issue get a little clearer, which it isn't right now. And frankly, the applicant isn't here. So, you know, as a matter of process, if we were to, you know, get into the deliberations of what is and isn't an interior lot, and again, at this point, I don't even know if he disputes it, and I don't know why he didn't apply for it. I don't know what's going on, but we would want to give him the opportunity to make a presentation. So we wouldn't make any decision before he had a chance to be heard. So in any event, even if we do end up doing it, it wouldn't be now. It would be after the ZBA hopefully gets fleshed out more and see what is, maybe the claims get clearer then. And then maybe he agrees or disagrees. And if he disagrees and it turns out it's a live issue and there's this dispute and there's something for us to hear, then we will hear it and we'll give him and opposing neighbors the chance to be heard. But we're not going to just make a decision this evening, particularly when it's not even clear that what is that issue. I mean, I don't know why he didn't apply for that, and maybe I don't know if his claim is that it doesn't apply, or I don't know yet because he's not here. So we'll wait. It may come up, but we're not going to do it tonight.
All right. Thank you for your time.
Yeah. So where else are we here? We are, number 4, referral of the Zoning Board of Appeals for use variance for 1925 Fairlawn Avenue. Can we, someone present that? Or?
Yes, I believe the property owner, Mr. John Mazzaruti, is here, but I'd just like to throw up the site plan and give a little bit of an explanation. Mr. Mazzaruti is requesting a variance for or to allow multifamily use in the R3 zoning district. He currently owns this property where 4 units exist. In these 2 buildings here, where my mouse is over, there is an existing wood frame garage that he would like to utilize for an additional 2 units. He had received some variances from the Zoning Board of Appeals earlier in the year, and he is now coming back for a variance of Section 4.8H4 for multifamily dwelling units. And like I said before, this is a use that is not permitted or not in our residential zoning district's use table. Therefore, it had to be referred to the zoning or to this commission for any comments. So if anybody has any comments or questions they'd like to ask the property owner, he is with us right now. Or if you do not have any objections, we can provide a response back to the ZBA of that being the case.
So these are existing nonconformities. Because it's R3 zone.
It is an R3 zone.
Right.
And the 2, 3, and 4 dwelling units is permitted in that zone by special exception. However,
I thought that was only R1 and R2.
You are correct. However, I believe that this use pre-exists our zoning regulations. So it's continuing a non-conforming use.
So it's a non-conformity, right. It's not permitted by special exception. It's an existing non-conformity.
Sorry about that. However, he is now proposing an additional 2 units on top of that non-conforming use, which requires a use variance from the Zoning Board of Appeals. And our section of the regulations for use variance requires a referral to this commission for comment.
Sounds congested to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's in a neighborhood. It's mainly single-family dwellings. Is that correct? Or I understand this is an existing nonconformity, but it's by Foot Park, right?
Yes, it is off of Indian Neck Road, I believe. John, did you want to add anything?
Already 4 units.
I'm sorry.
Joe Vayuso, did you have a question?
All I'm saying is, it appears to me there's already 4 units there that shouldn't be, and now he wants to put 2 more. It doesn't sound too good to me.
Yeah, if I could, if I could address the commission.
Go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, so there's as Evan showed there, there's 3 buildings there. There's 2 units in one building, then there's 2 units in another building. Then there's a separate garage space. The garage currently it has its own electrical there. So it is a rental property. So my thought process originally was, obviously to rent those units that are residential units, and then, my only option for this unit is to rent it to, I don't know, maybe a HVAC service guy, a contractor of some sorts. And I thought it better to make it residential. I thought it would conform better with the use, and obviously better for my tenants if it was residential and not something of that sort. So I wouldn't be increasing the footprint at all. It would be the same footprint. It would just go up vertically for 2 small efficiency units or studio apartments. I mean, parking wise, there's definitely parking back there. Yeah, I don't know. I just figured it was better. It was a better use of the space than to have it as garage space, which more or less is, I don't know, light industrial. I don't know.
Harry Smith, town planner. No, you can't have a light industrial commercial use in that zone. So that would not be allowed. And you could not get a use variance for that per, I believe, the use variance section of the zoning regulations. So those are just not options.
Yeah, I mean, I guess light industrial is maybe the wrong phrasing, but renting to someone like a contractor that would use it as a shop or something.
No. That's exactly what's not allowed in that zone, because it's a residential zone that does not allow that use.
Okay. So I don't believe that's an option for that piece of that building on your property. So what would be the potential uses if not residential?
What's the use now?
I'm sorry. I didn't hear that.
Yeah. What is the current use?
It's unrented right now. It's just a garage space. I mean, from my neighbors and my current tenant, I guess it used to be like a auto mechanic shop at some point. And then I guess, at some point during the use of the property, that portion, those other 2 buildings were converted into residential units, and this one still sits by itself. It's not like a shed or anything, it has its own electric meter. It's like its own little building. So like I said, currently it's not rented. It's just sitting vacant.
And you proposed, but how many units there?
2. I thought that's what would fit reasonably in the space. I mean, there's plenty of parking back there, but I definitely don't want it congested. So I figured, 2 studio apartments. It wouldn't be, a family with a bunch of cars. It would be, hopefully 1 or 2 people with not a lot of traffic coming in and out of the neighborhood. It's kind of at a dead end, so it's like actually right behind Foot Park. So from the backyard, you can kind of see over the marsh into Foot Park.
What I mean, initial question is, why are we looking at a variance application? Because that's why you have a ZBA. So what's the section of the regulations that refers these things to us? I just want to dig that up.
Yeah, we'll pull it up for you.
Section 913B, which I will share right now. And line 913B5, for any use variance application, the zoning board of appeals shall refer the application to the planning and zoning commission. The zoning board shall provide the planning and zoning commission with 35 days to review and comment on the application.
So this is considered a use variance because it's a multifamily dwelling, which is not allowed in the R3 district. Is that
That's
what's
correct.
going on? Okay.
This is Marcy. Are there any other variances being requested when he goes for the use variance? For bulk requirements?
Yes. He received some additional variances earlier in the year, but right now he is applying for enlargement or waiver of section 8.1(c)(1), enlargement of an existing non-conforming use. A variance for section 3.4(a)(2) to allow lot area per dwelling unit of 5,599 square feet, where 6,899 square feet exists and 15,000 square feet is required. So essentially 4,599 square feet where 15,000 square feet is required. An additional variance to allow vertical expansion of an existing non-conforming critical coastal resource setback of 18.3 feet where 25 feet is required, and the use variance.
So it's Marcy again. So as I understand it, he's trying to work within the footprint of his existing buildings to provide more residential uses in an area where there's a number of renters and is already a residential zone, so he can effectively use the garage rather than have his tenants, say, park in the garage. But he's not altering the impact of the site. Well, I mean, obviously it would remain up to interpretation when it comes back before us for a special exception, but he's not altering the overall impact of the site. I mean, I think I would like to give it a positive. Oh, sorry about that. I'd like to give it a positive referral for the use and see what planning ZBA, how they respond to the bulk requirements given around that, and then look at the application under special exception and then determine whether that many residences would be appropriate. Would it fit within the area? Are neighbors inclined to approve or disapprove it? I mean, just from the site plan, it looks like there's quite a bit of land around the area. I'd like to know how the parking would be proposed. Well, I'd like to see the site plan developed to see what is feasible there without just, blanketly make a decision that, it's adding more residences in R3. I mean, to me, that zone was created after those buildings were there and he's being penalized for it. He's just trying to use the buildings that are on the property. He's not effectively expanding them. So, I mean, that's just my take on it, but, whatever the rest of you respond.
My inclination is that I know he applied use variance and he mentions 4.8 something, but that has nothing to do with residential zones. Those are the uses in the commercial district, not an R3 zone. That's interesting. You don't need a variance of that section because 4.8.H4 is talking about commercial zones. So, but it's still a use variance, but that wouldn't be the regulation, I guess, if it's multifamily. There's 4 units on there now, and this will be to make it 6. Is that what's going on?
That's correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Then my sense is I don't have any. I think the ZBA can decide it. It wouldn't come back for us for a special exception. I think if he gets his variance, then he's entitled to build it. There's no process for a special exception in this zone since the use is not allowed. It's not allowed by special exception. So that's why he's seeking variance. So it wouldn't come back to us.
He's muted.
I have a question.
Chuck is muted.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to me.
I made a mistake. I was trying to hit my button. You were right next to me.
Okay.
My apologies.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead, sure.
Yeah, Sharon Hutner, is there any way that because he wants to increase the density of the dwellings in that particular property, that we can do anything along the lines of affordable housing at this stage?
I think he could apply for an 830G and get it done. But I don't think, and if you had 6 and 2 of them would be that, I think at the 20%. So yeah, I think there's a way of doing it as affordable housing. You know, and I probably wouldn't object to that. Otherwise I probably would. I mean, the criteria and the regulation, I mean, that's a good point, Sharon, is that a use variance shall only be granted where without the use variance, the private property would be rendered valueless. I think that's not what's going on here. I think that there is value to the property and it's existing. On the one hand, it's an R3 zone, which allows generally single family dwellings. I don't think you even get duplexes. And this would, you have 4 there now and he wants to make it 6. So that's, you know, you could say, well, that's a lot. And I get, you know, they're pre-existing buildings and he's converting a garage, and it's a garage and possibly a possible prior non-conforming use for, you know, garage or something, you know, or who knows if it was a commercial or just, you know, hobby garage. I don't. But I guess my inclination is, you know, I'm happy to give a no comment. You know, I have no comment at all to it. But this criteria says, but use variance should only be granted where without the use variance, the property would be rendered valueless. And I think the ZBA would need to look at that because that would be a tough sell, I think. But again, I'm not applying the application. Their affordability angle could be interesting because I think you could, you know, do it as a mini 830G because there's nothing that says 830Gs that have to be big projects and get it done that way. I mean, you can't say it's an accessory apartment because it's not. It's just a rental. It's, you know, so I don't know, do others have comments? I guess the question is, it's being referred to us for advisory comments because it's a use variance. And do we want to say anything at all? You know, what do others think?
Fred Russo. I have a comment.
Yeah.
There was a picture that was shown on the screen of the garage, and it is a garage. There's an overhead door on it, and a regular door maybe for an office. And there was also a notation that the building, I don't know, I don't think it's more than maybe 20 feet deep and maybe 20 or 25 feet across, but it's going to be converted to a 3-story building. So now you're going to have a 3-story building that was converted from a 1-story garage. The renovation is, you know, maybe in a strict interpretation, right? I think about, I want to change the use. Changing use is not building 2 more stories on top of the existing story. It's pretty much doing it within the framework. I've seen garages, and we've had them here, where they put dormers on it. I'm okay with that. But to go up 2 more full stories, to me, is really stretching the regulation. That's not, you know, just the fact that it may have electricity doesn't mean anything. We don't know what the floor is. We don't know anything about the building itself. As a matter of fact, the building itself may not be capable of supporting 2 more levels of housing up there. So my concern is whether or not is the the potential application of making this into a 2-unit building would be, in my mind, okay if it stayed on 1 floor with dormers on the 2nd level. But here we're saying we have a 1-story building. It's going to be a 3-story building. I don't know what the other buildings are on the lot. They're just 2 stories. But this would stick out like a sore thumb, in my opinion, unless I saw more information as to with elevations and stuff. I would think it's really on the edge of abusing the regulation. So my first inclination is that it may fit the definition of the use, changing the use, but this is an exaggeration of changing the use. This is going from literally a 1-car garage or with an office to a 3-story building to accommodate 2 efficiency units. You know, and I believe the reason why it has to go up is because there's not enough floor space, you know, the length and width of the original structure even go 2 levels. You know, 2 levels, I probably, okay, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. 3 levels, that's a pretty tall building in a one-family neighborhood. So that's my thought on that.
Yeah, if I could make a couple comments, maybe they'd quell kind of some of your concerns. So currently the 2 other buildings. So there's one building with two bedrooms. Below those two bedrooms, right? That's on the second floor, are 4 garage bays. Then that walks up into an attic. So my previous variance requests that were granted was to turn those two bedrooms into like a 3-bedroom, 2 baths, right? And put dormers on that attic space, right? And then the other variance that was granted was to take what's currently the single floor building with 2 single bedrooms and to make those into where the units are now into garage spaces, and then add 2 additional floors to be the same height as the 2-bedroom unit building is now. So when I take that other garage space, so currently the building we're talking about now, there's 2 garage bays, and then you walk up into like I guess you would call it a loft. You know, you can stand up there, but it's you know, the pitch isn't such that you could fit an apartment. So, you know, my intention is for all 3 buildings to be at the same height. And you know, the other 2 variances were granted, so those buildings can already be at that height. So it would really just be taking this building and making it the same height. And you're right in the fact that it is probably, you know, maybe 20 feet deep by, you know, maybe, you know, close to 30 feet wide. So you're right. I mean, fitting 2 apartments, you know, on 1 floor there, that would be a stretch. But, you know, my intention is to have, you know, that first floor still stay as garage bays. You know, each apartment would have a garage as they do in these other units that are currently existing. And then on each floor would be an efficiency unit, probably adding up to somewhere in the neighborhood of, you know, 550, 600 square feet.
Thank you.
If Marcy again, just to clarify my comments, because after listening to Fred, I do agree with what he says about the 3 stories. I think, you know, and it sounds from Chuck's comments that, you know, we could give it a positive referral, but then we won't see it back to be able to respond to, you know, the way the site functions from a parking standpoint, the size and massing of the building, whether that's proportionate and consistent with the neighborhood. You know, I think all of those things are important in an application like this, and whatever legal form it comes at, you know, that was my concern. But you know, I just wanted to mention that I know there's a number of rentals in the area. You know, we have a lot of rentals. You know, maybe one of them becomes an affordable, maybe the rents become at market rate. I don't know, but you know, I just think, you know, any project, and I'm sure Joe Chadwick would concur. You know, the massing should be appropriate for the neighborhood and be contextually appropriate, and was just what I was trying to indicate before.
Thanks, Marcy.
Chuck, Fred Russo again.
Yes, Fred.
I just add one more thing. You know, having been involved just on a elementary level with this affordable housing, one thing I did learn on our trip is that I agree with Sharon and you too, Chuck, as far as if it's possible to make it affordable. But one of the things I learned is that it only, and this is from the developers, that it only becomes reasonable to do that on the part of the developer, because the units are not subsidized. You know, the property owner, in a sense, has to, you know, the trade-off is taking a lower rent to make them affordable, but it's better when it's spread over many units. It's this way you reduce there's a small reduction of the full rents to help accommodate the lower rents. On a 2-unit building, I'm just, you know, listen, the property owner can do whatever he wants to do, but in theory, it's a good idea. I think in practice, it's not very practical to do. When we went on that bus tour, most of the units were 30 and 40 units and up. So if there's 5 or 6 units that are affordable, there are plenty of full price units that can compensate for the lower units. When you have 2 units, I would just say it doesn't, that particular kind of an example, what we're talking about now, probably doesn't work. But listen, if he wants to try it, good luck to him to do it.
Thanks, Fred. Other comments?
If I may follow up on Marcy, context is everything. And I don't feel we have enough information to make a judgment based on just sort of, the footprints. There is an intention to cram as many units as we possibly can within the footprints. And we have had other applications come before us that had perfectly conforming projects within a zoning envelope that turned out to be kind of neighborhood monstrosities. And to that extent, I am much more reluctant to just give a wholesale approval or endorse something based on what I'm looking at as a footprint. A lot of units are getting packed in there, and a lot of ratios are getting stretched. And I couldn't honestly say, yeah, sure, or absolutely not. There are ways to do it, and there are ways not to do it. And I just don't have the information.
Thanks, Joe. Joe Vaiuzzo, any other comments? Or
the only comment I have is what Joe just said is exactly what I'm trying to get across. We had issues with where we increased the square footage of the property, so there wouldn't be as many units as we're talking here now. So I don't know how much square footage he has there in property. We're talking something around 6,000 square feet or something, or 4,000 per unit or something. I don't know exactly what it was, but we increased the square footage basically to not have this situation. So I'm not sure this is the situation. Like Joe says, we don't have. I don't see enough information to make a real good judgment call here. I'd like to see a little more information before we just give them a carte blanche okay on it.
yeah, I mean, my basic concern is that it's an R3 zone. It's in an area with mainly single-family dwellings. It's near Foot Park, and I know this is kind of in the rear and it's kind of off on its own, but that's where the neighborhood is, and it's already 4 units on a lot, and it wants to add 2 more and make it 6, and that just seems, like a lot. But what we're, that's the ZBA's job to look at this. So I mean, it's kind of weird. Why are we even talking about variances? It's because it's a use variance. If it's area variances, then they don't come to us, but it's only because it's a use variance. It's in a zone which doesn't allow multifamily, I guess. They are 3 and single family, and now it's a multifamily proposal. So we have to say something to the ZBA. I don't know what, I mean, there's a sort of, the summary, I guess, is there's some hesitancy here on this. I don't think we can say no objection. I think that we're wary about it, and we think they need to give it thorough scrutiny and look carefully at the regulations or something. We could say something like that. I don't know what
is the I'm sorry. Is the hesitancy mainly based on not having enough information, not having a grasp of kind of where the buildings are laying now, what the height of them is, and is it really more information based that that you would make that recommendation, that you really don't have enough information to say either which way?
I think it's kind of both. I mean, some of it is contextual. I think that was by Marcy and Joe, looking at context and neighborhood and so forth. For me, it's more fairness that this zone itself is a single family zone. You already have 4 and you want to add 6, and what kind of precedent would be presenting, if it's granted here. And kind of some of the things that Fred said is that it's not like you're just using an existing structure, you are elevating it. And I understand, you're putting in more to make it a more viable residential area, 2 more units. So that's my objection, but I'm just speaking for me.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
is that to say, and I know it's not just you, there's multiple people that have some hesitancy, but is that to say that it would be more palatable if the structure itself wasn't changing as much? In essence, if there was just a dormer on the second floor and it was 1 unit, or something of that sort.
Might. I mean, then you're going from 4 to 5 instead of 4 to 6.
Yeah, I mean, so my struggle is, what do I do with the unit, really, right? Like, I mean, it's 2 garages. It's just sitting there right now. I really don't know what to do with it, how to rent it, who to rent it to. And like my immediate kind of easiest option is, okay, well, I'll make it more residential, right? That'll make sense. Nothing would interfere with my tenants, depending on what type of business was there. I've personally never gotten into any type of mixed use rentals. I really don't know much about it. My kind of area is residential use. It just kind of made the most sense to me, to kind of attempt to go that route as opposed to trying to, take on a whole new kind of segment of rentals that I'm not really knowledgeable about at all.
It's the affordable component. Do you know what that means? Do you know what that involves?
And to be honest, I've spoken to some other developers, and I've gotten kind of similar feedback to I don't know the gentleman's name off the top of my head, Mr. Russo, that essentially it makes a lot of sense when you have a large number of units to offset that loss of or lack of market rent that you're getting for those other units. I mean, I haven't looked into it too much, but that was kind of my impression as well, speaking to some other developers.
Yeah, I mean, it's not low income. It's like 1,100 for a 1-bedroom or something like that. It's not as real low stuff. It is somewhat lower. It's at people at the 80% income level. I mean, that's an out. I think that would, there may be a way, and that's what we're trying to do, and that may be something to look into. But anyway, we don't make the decision on the variance. It's a ZBA, and they're just sending it to us for a recommendation, and what we're struggling with. So how do we frame this when we give it back to them? I mean, there's some mixed stuff here. So,
I mean, I'd like to provide you, if you feel that you don't have the information to make an informed decision or make informed recommendations, I'd like the opportunity to provide that to you.
You have a hearing scheduled for the ZBA, right?
Yeah, that's the 19th.
Can I jump in?
Yep.
You said you have how many units and how many garages?
So there's on the property total, there's 6 garage bays and 4 units.
So if 4 units, if they're 2-car drivers, you could increase your rent by just renting the garage to one of the existing tenants who needs a second car, might prefer to have the garage.
Yeah.
What I mean?
No, that makes sense. But the unit, the garage space under the 2-bedroom units are two cars deep.
The tandem.
I'm sorry, what was that?
A tandem?
I don't.
Front to back, so one car has to leave.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You could pull up 2 cars, and then there's obviously parking in front of those garages too. I don't know.
So why not make livable space in the tandem portion of the garage to maximize what you've got in the buildings to do nicer apartments, and then take the 2 garages that are being underutilized and include them in the rent, and still keep the total number of rentals the same, but just give them a better accommodation, which would then command more income.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a terrible thought. I mean, part of it is just the orientation of the buildings, and it's probably not very descriptive the way it looks.
Well, that was my point. Without seeing a full application, working out the parking units and the size of units, you can propose a lot of different things it's, but it seems like you're using a lot of your garage space to not have to have open parking on the site, which to me is a much more conducive solution to a residential R3 zone than having a parking lot with open cars to support them.
So part of it is that the entrances to the units that are there now are kind of facing the street. So you drive down it's at the end of a cul-de-sac, and they're kind of facing the street. To get to this garage, you kind of need to drive around those buildings in the back, and then there's the garage. So I don't know that it would be feasible for someone to want to, park in the back and then walk all the way around to their unit. I mean, of course, I guess it's always an option. But I mean, my thought is that there's definitely plenty of garage parking for the current, tenants as it is.
And personally, as an additional residence, it's very unobtrusive to what's already in the neighborhood. The biggest impact of the neighborhood is the additional traffic it would generate. Because I'm just looking at the aerial that you have up now. So, but like I said, it's hard to, and you could even do a lot of open parking in the back, and it'd be none the wiser other than the fact that it looks like you're in the upland review area, or you've got title concerns.
It seems to me you got to watch what we're setting. Like Chuck said, we're setting a precedent here of already having 4 units in a zone 3 area already, single family homes with 4 units already, and now you're trying to get 2 more squeezed in there. It just doesn't add up, in my opinion.
I mean, there's, I'm also looking at the size of the lot. The lot is large enough, he could propose a first split. There's all kinds of zoning vehicles to, make it more conforming. I mean, and I to me, it would be, I'd like to know how the neighborhood would respond, to an application. I don't want to deny him his right to, do what he wants to do on the property, but, I just find it interesting. We impose all these zoning regulations, and then it doesn't necessarily jive with the way the property's been functioning over time, and then yet we penalize them because we've overlaid the zoning. So I mean, so it's just kind of, and obviously it would be a very desirable rental because it's overlooking the marsh, right? In the back. So I could see why he would want to develop that.
Well, we gotta give a recommendation. We gotta summarize whatever our recommendation. It sounds like there's different views, and that's fair. I think some of us are probably opposed, just from the density perspective in the R3 zone. Others are more, are less so, but would concerned about neighborhood impact, but not necessarily saying no. But I don't, Evan, you're going to the meeting, right? You referred to us. I don't know if we have a collective statement or not. I think we have people with individual views on this, and I don't know what we say.
Harry, can I provide no comment?
Harry Smith, town planner. You can provide no comment as the comment, or someone can make a motion to send a positive, as Marcy suggested, or a negative based on the density, as you just mentioned, and float a motion out there and see what people vote or say about it. I mean, if you wanted to say something.
Okay. Does someone want to make a motion? We'll just float it out there. I don't know if we want to say positive.
Can we give a neither positive nor negative, and just say, these 2 positives, these 3 negatives, or what have you, for their consideration as they consider the requirements, and make statements based on our discussion? Because I think everybody's made valid statements, and it's a perspective type of conclusion. If this did come back to us as a site plan or a PUD, whatever, I think we would have a healthy discussion on the appropriateness of it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that what the ZBA would do with sort of a mixed bag comment that, if you will.
If we just
But
told
that's
them it
up
was
to
a
you.
non,
That's up to you.
yeah, if we just told them it was a non-consensus.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It asked for a comment. Our
Okay,
comment is
sure.
that there are different views or non-consensus. Several are, one or two were opposed because of the density. That's me. That going from R3 zone, there's 4 there already, and adding 6. I just think that's, for precedent. Otherwise, not a good. Good. It doesn't meet. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say you could make this case multiple places. Also, it is a neighborhood. There's not a lot of this going on. It is mainly single family dwellings. That's where this is in Indian Neck. So this is different. I understand it's at the end of a, drive by it a lot and of it, but it's still, I have concerns about it. But that's, others are more contextual, that perhaps, proper design and because it is sort of tucked away in a dead end, the impact can be minimal and it's a better possible use, even though it's, that's what I'm hearing. So, I think that we can just say that. Yeah. Fred
Russo. I think if our commission gave a positive referral, it would send the wrong message to the ZBA. I really do. I think that it would say that we're condoning whatever the applicant is looking to do, and I don't think that's where we're at as a commission. I think that in this particular case, we're not in agreement. I don't even think we have a majority of those who are in agreement, as opposed to those who are not in agreement. And so I think that we have to be very careful as to what we recommend. I think the ZBA depends on us to either say a yes or a no. So I think we have to be more definitive. It's nice to say 3-2 or not consensual, but I think our job is to say it's a good idea or it's not a good idea. It's, we're going to recommend it or we're not going to recommend it. That's what I think. I just think that we have to vote our conscience, what we think is what is best, and not try to hedge the vote with all the other suggestions. So whenever you guys are ready, I'm ready to vote.
Okay. Yeah. And Fred, that's fair. And we can make a motion that make a positive negative referral. What it says, because we're not approving or denying an application, and we're not giving a 824 referral a positive. Right. It just says the ZBA shall provide the Planning and Zoning Commission with 35 days to review and comment on the application. Doesn't that's our obligation to provide a comment. So it there is some ambiguity in there. That said, your point is to be assistant. Let's kind of let's make a more definitive comment and give them some direction.
That's correct.
Okay. So do you want to make a motion?
Yes, I will. I'll make a motion that we do not give a positive referral on this application or this on the request.
Okay. That we do. The motion is that we make a negative or just a not positive, or
I don't know. It's semantics. I guess a non-positive or negative referral on this.
May I may I restate the motion?
Sure.
I move that the commission's representative to the meeting summarizes the statements made during the deliberation and offers them with a non-committal referral.
Okay, well, that's a different motion, but that's not restating it. But
it's a different. Okay, it's a different motion. So we'll, if we were in person, we could actually fight.
I think that's a better motion. I think that we're not in consensus. So to give them a non-committal and give them some clear decisions, while the size of the lot doesn't conform to our R3 standards, we understand that there are other rentals in the neighborhood, that it's predominantly a single family neighborhood. We understand that they're not proposing surface level parking outside of the garage, which is conducive to a residential neighborhood, because of its unique consideration and location within the neighborhood. There may be ways to have this fit the character of the R3 zone. These are all the kinds of things that I know Chuck, based on numbers, doesn't like the precedent, but I think that we can, I still, for any project, I like to look at a lot as its pros and its cons and its merits for what it can be. And, his lot size is much larger than what's required in an R3 zone. And I would rather see something like this than to see him try to subdivide it and have a weird, flag lot or come in with a PUD and add layers on zoning or what have you. I think he's trying to work within the confines of his buildings to a certain extent. And, Chuck, I understand you don't agree with it, and I understand that it's not a perfect solution and you're worried about precedents, but I think we can add specificity to the comments in such a way that gives the ZBA information to make their own decision and can represent all of the good comments that everybody's offered tonight.
Okay, so I understand Joe's motion is that we give a non-committal with summarize the comments, and you just said what your comments were, but that would be the motion that Joe is making, and not what it requires Joe to remember everything we said. Not Joe, Evan, excuse me, what am I talking about?
Well, that's why we record it.
Right.
Well,
Harry, what do you got?
You guys are being so polite with each other. I'm very impressed. But I think maybe, Fred, are you withdrawing your motion in deference to Joe's modified motion or not? Or do you want to continue with your motion because it's sort of you're half out there?
I would like to have just a little more discussion on my motion. This is not a public hearing right now. This is just a request to either make a negative or positive referral. That's all. And we could talk about all the ifs, ands, and buts. There's no information that's available. And based on the information we have, we can't possibly make a recommendation in the affirmative. I think it's pretty simple. It's pretty clear. All the things that you're saying are legitimate. All the commissioners that have made comments, I believe they're legitimate. But this isn't a public hearing. And we've heard probably more than we generally would hear from a potential applicant. But this isn't the right format for what we're doing. It's just we have to make a recommendation. We've made referrals on projects much bigger than this, much more complicated than this. This one seems pretty simple in my mind. We don't have enough information, and we don't give an affirmative recommendation. That's it. Now, all the other things I think are legitimate if we're in a public hearing, but we're not. This is not a public hearing. It's just asking for a referral. That's what we have to do. It's going to be a yes or a no. That's all.
I thought the referral was for comments. That didn't have to be a yes or a no. I thought that's what Chuck was saying before.
I think that's ultimately it's got to be. But Fred's point is that let's give him some direction, and rather than just comments. You're right. We don't have to. So anyway, Fred, you want to make a motion to make a non-positive referral to the ZBA on this application and authorize Evan to explain some of the comments?
Yes, I would make that motion.
So that's the motion, that yes. Make a non-positive referral and authorize Evan to summarize some of the individual comments for that the individual members made.
Yes,
so
I would agree with that.
Okay,
yes.
So that's the motion by Fred. Is there a second to that?
Vaiuso seconds.
Second by Joe Vaiuso. Any further discussion?
Yeah, what's a non-positive referral?
Are you saying a non-positive response to the referral?
Well, that's like saying no, that we're against the project. I would rather it be a non-committal.
Well, what Fred's making a motion, I want to know what he wants to, what you guys can vote against it, I guess, right? But,
well, if that's what the motion is, yeah.
Okay. Fred, do you want to? Yeah, I think you said make a non-positive referral. That's sort of
yes, that's correct.
Referral.
Okay, that's the motion. So motion's been made, seconded. All those in favor, Joe Chadwick.
Joe
And
Chadwick
authorize.
is not in favor.
Okay, not in favor, and also authorize Evan to explain the things. Fred.
In favor.
Joe Vayuso.
Favor.
Marcy.
Not in favor.
Chair is in favor. So we have I like the authorizing Evan to explain the ambiguities.
Okay.
I hope they follow the regs too, because there's some criteria in there that they don't need us to read it to them. So anyway, okay. So what else we got under planners report?
Harry Smith, town planner. Just reminding everyone, I think everyone can make the workshop in quotes next meeting with the addition of that one application for 1064 Main Street, which hopefully won't take too much time. I think we had, Sharon is waving her hand.
I've got a commitment earlier that evening, but I may be able to get there late.
Okay. So apart from that, we would probably, I think we were talking about trying to limit this to 2 hours. I will do my best to get the best version I can of what we have as a draft issues list out tomorrow, so people have time to look at the issues before the meeting. If you folks are right with it, we're going to keep it fairly limited to maybe 10 or 12 items to talk about that we think are collectively, Evan and I think are the most pressing. Either they're dealing with a change of the regulations to comply with state statute changes, which are some of them, or some more pressing of the several issues with the zoning regulations. We have other issues we may touch on at the end just to see what you think, but it may take a lot more work to deal with some of these issues that, you know, are not going to be on a list of 10 to 12. So we can talk about all that next week. And I'll try and get something out to you, as I said, tomorrow. Also, just the reminder, we've, I think we've got, I don't know, we've got some people coming, are promising to come to the get together tomorrow night. And I understand several people can't make it, including John Luss, which is unfortunate. So I think Marcy was on the call. Excuse me, Michelle is probably just doing it by BCTV, but do you mind going through and saying who can make it and who can't? Because frankly, I can't recall what she told me. And I mean, if you're okay with like 3 or 4 or 5 of us getting together, if that's what it turns out to be and hanging out, I'm fine. I'll be there. I just wanted to sort of point out collectively that not everyone's going to be able to make it, or even probably most.
And I got to leave at 5:45.
Yeah.
So it'll be quick.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to make it either.
Yeah. Fred, I think you were able to go, right?
I said I would go.
Yep. And since I'll just go around, Joe, is that possible for you or not? Or
I've got about a 70% chance of being there.
Okay,
I've got a scope review at the end of the day, and that could run until 7.
Okay, appreciate that. Okay, and Massimo, you were good, right?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
It starts at what time? 5?
We were thinking of 5 in deference to Chuck. I probably get there 4:30 just to try and stake out a table.
I'll probably be a little late due to work.
Okay. So it looks like Fred, Massimo, and Chuck, myself, and Marcy. What about you and Joe?
Go ahead, Joe.
All right, I'll be there.
Okay.
I can make Friday, but the 14th is a company Christmas party, and I'm still deciding which way I'm leaning. Because I feel like you're proposing review of the planning, the zoning stuff, which I'd rather address in the beginning of the year, not around the Christmas holiday personally, but it sounds like you've got that meeting well in motion, so I give you a point.
Well, I mean, I see this as a beginning of discussion, and if you had any comments on the issues list and wanted to shoot me an email, something, I would send it around to everyone, and we certainly review everything later on. But I think I was just concerned about starting before the end of the year, because I feel like it's very difficult for staff and the commission, I think, to get at these things, and I think we really got to get at least a few of them and start the ball rolling. So that's all really I wanted to accomplish, was getting the ball rolling, get some feedback from the commission.
Yeah, I just wish it wasn't under a special meeting, that's all.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And I think we did get in touch with Paul Higgins, and he could not make it, unfortunately, either. So that was sort of the collective. And Evan, I know you're off tomorrow, so I don't even know if I think Michelle's going to try and make it. I will make it, and there we are. So sounds like a go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah? Okay. All right. Evan, is there anything you have? I don't know if I have anything else.
Nope.
I have something.
Okay.
I attend on December 1st, Circa, which is the Connecticut Institute for Resilience and Climate Adaptation, had a really wonderful summit up at UConn Law School talking about all different kinds of resiliency issues. And it was very well attended and really very enlightening. And they have put together a page that explains how there are certain zoning regulations and practices that we can use in terms of how we can deal with resilience and zoning. And I sent it to Harry. I sent the website. Did you get that email, Harry?
I will take a look. I've been pretty frankly, just keep my head above water barely. So let me see if I've missed it somewhere.
Yeah, it's I can put it in the chat now, or I could resend it to you if you would
Yeah,
like.
and I could send it around to everyone if you do that. I'm sorry.
Okay, and so because you can also, there's modules on that website that you can take courses and get credit for the continuing education that we're all responsible for.
Okay, great. I'm happy to send that around, and can bring it up and talk about it briefly at the workshop too. Anything else? I don't have anything else.
Nothing else? Anyone else have anything else? Okay, well then we can see some of you tomorrow then, and does someone make a motion to adjourn?
Fred Russo, I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Motion by Fred to adjourn. Is there a second?
Chadwick seconds.
Second by Joe Chadwick. Further discussion. All in favor? Joe Chadwick.
Chadwick in favor.
Fred Russo.
Russo's in favor.
Joe Vayuzo.
Vayuzo in favor.
Marcy.
Marcy's in favor.
And Chair is also in favor. So good night, everyone.
Hey, happy night. See you tomorrow.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Branford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BranfordTV.org.